Welcome everyone, YouTube friends from all over. This is AstroScoop. This is Jeff. This is an astrology coaching channel that does a deep dive into the planets and signs of the zodiac. That's what I always say at the beginning of my videos. If you've seen them, it is 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And one thing I want to mention before we start is for the last month, Argentina has watched more minutes and more of my videos than any other country. However, that's changed in the last 10 days or so. And now it's reverted back to the United States, which is interesting because obviously I'm Eastern Standard Time in the US. So for some reason, 45% of you are now watching, last 10 days or so, watching from the States. So thank you so much, fellow state people. And I'm not sure what that difference is, but it's great. I'll take the views. Again, I'm a very small microscopic channel, and I appreciate each and every view. And we are going to grow. Mark my words, we are going to grow. I don't care how long it takes, but we will grow one piece at a time. And I want to get to 500 subscribers by the summer. That's my goal. By June or July or even August, I want to get to 500, which isn't much in the YouTube space, but to me it is. We're over 400 now, so that's good. So hopefully you can tell your family, friends, and please share. I have a lot of interesting videos coming up. I'm going to do some different videos that I haven't done, and especially very, very different from when I first started the sign videos. I'm going to do more compatibility, more of the sign dynamics, and how the transits affect each particular sign, because everyone's interested in these transits lately, especially Pluto and Aquarius. So I will talk about that more at length in videos about how it affects certain rising signs, your sun signs, moon signs, and we'll go into all that. That's all coming up for 2024. So please stay tuned. So I'm starting earlier tonight, trying to get some viewers. It's a struggle, but I'm going to try different times. And for now, I'm going to move the 8 o'clock slot to 7:30 on Saturdays, and I may change the day as well, but we'll see. So today is February 17th, 2024, and last week I mentioned that we were in the last decade of Aquarius. So we are in the last weekend of Aquarius as Pisces starts late tomorrow night on the 18th, at least in the US. So it's somewhere around 11 p.m. or almost midnight on the 19th. So think about that, depending on your year. So the Aquarius-Pisces Cusp period is February 16th, which was yesterday, that goes right around to the 22nd or 23rd. Now, some books have it ending on the 21st, and some have it beginning on the 15th. But I use the 16th to the 22nd, those main days, and then possibly the 23rd is basically when it starts true Pisces. But it's also 23, 24 can possibly be cusp period as well. Some people believe that. So that's the period we're using. So if you're born this weekend, if you're a 16, 17, or 18 Aquarius, you're the very, very like last degree and you're almost Pisces. But if you're the 19th, depends on your year, right? Because most years on the 19th, if you're born early in the day, or well, it depends. If you were born at 12:01 a.m. on the 19th, you'd probably be a last minute Aquarius. But if you're born at noon or later on the 19th of most years, you're going to be a 0 Pisces. But either way, you are a cusp person, and you're one sign, and you definitely have the traits of both signs, Aquarius and Pisces, but you are one sign. Now, I know some Aquarius people that are born this weekend, that have told me they feel more like a Pisces than an Aquarius. And there's a couple reasons for that. One possible reason is that growing up, when they were 1 or 2, their chart progressed. So if you believe in progressions, their chart progressed into Pisces so that they were able to tune into that Pisces energy as a toddler, as a big baby. So if you were a sensitive baby, you could have tuned into that very quickly by 2 or 3. And also another reason for that is if you're 29 Aquarius, you probably have Pisces planets in your chart naturally. So that's most likely going to happen. And if you're a early Pisces, you're most likely going to have at least one Aquarius planet, just like we talked about the Capricorn Aquarius dynamic. Now we're going to talk about the Aquarius Pisces dynamic. So that's definitely an interesting thing. So you can see here, Aquarius Pisces. Aquarius is obviously air, which is thoughts, intellect, and water is feeling. So we're combining the air, the intellectual strength and talent of air, Aquarius, and then we're combining it with the Pisces, elusive, mysterious, and deep Pisces. So that makes for quite an amazing combination. I think this is the most interesting cusp in all the cusps in the zodiac. I really do believe this one is the most interesting. And we'll talk about that a little later about because it's at the very end of the zodiac and Pisces is the last sign. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. And stay tuned. We're going to talk about celebrities here as well. Get through all that. So air and water. So again, like every week when we talk about these signs and the elements, it's kind of like natural lessons wherever you are in astrology. I mean, even advanced astrologers can learn from other astrologers. And I talked to a man a few years ago through email who had written some books. He didn't want me to ever mention his name to anyone. I'm not sure why, but that's fine. So I won't mention his name. But I did. He didn't write. We're not talking about Linda Goodman level or some of the other people, not to that level. But he had some kind of low level fame with some kind of local books in the States, mostly the East Coast. And I talked with him on a few occasions, mostly through email. And I told him where I was at with astrology and my skill level. And he was absolutely a master astrologer. I mean, he was well above me in terms of the mathematics and the angles and the midpoints and the synastry. And there's no doubt. I mean, he was well past. He was absolute master. I think he was probably a 10 out of 10 as far as skill level. So I was assuming that he wasn't going to learn anything from me because he had written books. He was 15 years older than me. He had more life experience, but we ended up communicating, and he liked some of my angles and perspective on some of the signs, and he actually did learn some things from me. And even though we disagreed on certain techniques, whether it was traditional or modern astrology, whether it was kind of old school or new school, we did disagree on some things. But again, I was looking at him as like a mentor, and I assumed he wasn't gonna. What was he gonna learn from me? He basically knew most of it, but his techniques were a little different, and my techniques were a little more intuitive. His were probably a little more logical, scientific. So he appreciated that angle, and he did learn. He respected my point of view, even if it was different. So that's the beautiful thing that obviously that made me feel good. But if someone watching this at some point in the future, whatever skill level you think I'm at, from a 1 to 10, you can learn something from me, hopefully, but maybe I can learn something from you. You never know. I mean, people have all kinds of talents. I've even talked to people that are beginner astrologers that have very good insights because they might be a natural at it. So it just depends. So I wanted to mention that about how when we talk about the elements here, when we talk about air and water, sometimes just close your eyes and just think, imagine the air. I said this last week, like, what does air do? Air's all around us. You breathe it. It can be cool, right? It could be warm. It can be stormy. It's usually cool and kind of quiet and detached. But if you stir air sign, if you if you've ever argued with someone that has a lot of air signs in their chart, they're usually very good arguers. And air signs can make very good lawyers. But if you touch a nerve with them, generally they're unemotional in their argument. But if you touch a nerve with the air sign, as far as especially with justice, if justice or injustice, that kind of theme, justice, injustice, then you can see a storm verbally, usually, a storm coming from the air sign, um, usually a verbal storm. And it's interesting. But yeah, you just want to imagine what's air. And then now we're introducing what's water, right? What does water do? Does water wear away rock? Water can soothe and cool you. Water can burn you. Um, Water is a stream. It's calm, but it's also tsunamis and waves, and all sorts of. When you combine like the thunder and the rain, you kind of have air and water there. So this is a very, I don't want to use the word interesting. I overuse the word interesting. And one of my resolutions this year is to stop saying interesting, because it's not interesting when I keep saying it. I know that. So I have to get a little more polished and stop saying interesting. It's way overused. It's like I watch all sorts of podcasts, and even established people that have tens of thousands of subscribers say some of the silliest things and use the same words over and over and over. So it's just, we have to change it up. So I'm going to try not to say interesting, but amazing is my word for this. Okay. Amazing. It doesn't mean that's all positive, but we're going to talk about that. But this cusp is amazing because, and you'll see when we get to the celebs. I know I kind of say that about every cusp, but this one's different. The sensitivity quotient, there's a book that deals with personality, and the authors have coined this cusp, the cusp of sensitivity. And I know there's a lot of astrologers on X and Instagram that are similar to me that also follow the same cusps. So this is the cusp of sensitivity, but it's not always in the exact ways you might think when you think of the word sensitive, right? This cusp is a beautiful combination of sensitivity and, believe it or not, insensitivity. That's right. This cusp can be beautifully sensitive, but can also have a chip on their shoulder. They can absolutely have a chip on their shoulder, but there's always a reason for that. There's a psychological reason, depending on how they were raised. But part of that is being late in the zodiac and going through all the other signs. A lot of it has to do with your upbringing and your parents. And this is an incredibly impressionable cusp when you consider the intellectual sensitivity that these people have, intellectual radar, intellectual antennae. People on this cusp can be brilliant, and it's not, but it's not all. It's not. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with schooling, or having a master's degree or a PhD. It doesn't even have to do anything with specialty or certifications. It could be a natural talent, like we talked about in early Aquarius, a natural talent socially and a natural talent intellectually. But this intellect is psychic because we're blending the feeling here. So what's interesting about people on this cusp, and don't worry, I have your number, Aquarius-Pisces cusps. I've met enough that I could tune into you, and I can see you're a hard nut to crack. You're absolutely a hard nut to crack, and you're hard to know. But you are tough. There's toughness there on the surface, and of course, again, there's a reason for that. man or woman, doesn't matter. You're tough on the surface and you're controlled and composed and detached. But underneath, you're like mostly like jellyfish. So it takes a lot of diplomacy and tact and respect to get through to this beautiful water part that you have, to this feeling. And you will express it a little bit here and there. Um, but I think the reason why this can be an insensitive cusp is because of you have a strong self-protective mechanism with the air is detached and the water can be defensive, right? Pisces is easily hurt. And we're going to talk about that a lot more next week when we're actually in Pisces. So tonight's live stream is probably kind of the last round for talking about Aquarius for the most part. But yeah, Pisces, when we get to this feeling part of you with the sensitivity, I mentioned the it's like intellectual psychic. So it's like psychic in a mental way, but then it's like you're starting to learn your emotional depth. Now you have that, but that part of you it scares you a little bit. The Aquarius part is interested in it, in other people and yourself, but you're also repelled by it. You also don't want to dive that deep sometimes. And that's fine. That doesn't mean you're superficial. It just means you don't want to dive that deep in certain relationships. You will puzzle people in relationships and friendships. You will puzzle them because one day you can be detached and cool and give the best rational advice to someone because you're so caring. And then 2 days later, you're very interested and engaged with them emotionally, and you want to know more about them as a person on a one-on-one level. And then a couple days later, you're right back to your cool observing self, and you're observing again. Um, so you puzzle people, and people in your life will find you cold. They will term you cold unless they understand. Again, this is all about understanding where people are coming from, right? So it's this is what the beauty of astrology is, that when you start to see how it works and you get it, and then if you're lucky enough to know people in your real life that you can be close to or have good conversations with, even if you don't have profound, deep connections with them, but you have enough conversations with them where you can share the energy and share the traits, you will get to know this combination of the intellectual, psychic, and emotional depth. It's really amazing. Now, as I mentioned, you are concerned and caring, but it's at a distance for the most part. It's at a distance. And of course, that's the Aquarius part. Everybody knows that. There's a lot of videos on social media, poking fun at Aquarius being cold and detached. And you know, that's a whole nother video about whether Aquarius is cold or not. A lot of that has to do with the maturity of the person. It just depends. And again, it just depends on how deep someone wants to dive into the specific situation or relationship or friendship. But the distance is always there. Again, it doesn't mean you don't care. You are caring in your own way. And most people know it. People that are close to you are going to know that there's always going to be a little bit of that distant part of you, and that little bit of cerebral, cautious part of you that doesn't jump into things and doesn't always celebrate when you should. Celebrate more things in life. You know, Celebrate more moments. Jump on the enthusiasm wagon a little bit. It's hard for Aquarius Pisces to do that. um it's like lose yourself a little bit, mentally, and jump and say, wow, this is so exciting. Just do that once in a while. That's what the fire sign dynamics would teach this cusp. um but yeah, that's something to do. But part of the distance is because of this word here, recharge. You need to recharge because of sensitivity, right? Now, that's mostly, I think, mostly the Pisces part. And again, we'll talk about that. But Pisces and Aquarius are sensitive in different ways, but there's this combination of this sensitivities coming together. But you need to recharge, you know. Um, there are, if you've heard of the term HSP, highly sensitive person, uh, there's a psychologist, I believe her name is Erin, that PhD, that wrote books on this. And I think it's 15 to 20% of the population she sees that are highly sensitive regarding your nervous system and how you respond to your environment. And I don't think that necessarily has anything to do with autism or disability or ADHD necessarily. Those can overlap, but it's more so nervous system overload kind of thing. And we all have a certain amount in crowds and with people where we just get drained, and then we need alone time. Everyone needs it. But this cusp, if you don't understand that this person needs serious and abnormal amounts of alone time, it's way more than the rest of the zodiac. And again, is that because they don't care? No, it's just what they need. So it's like, it's just survival. It's the recharge those batteries, recharge the emotional batteries, and recharge the mental batteries. You got to remember, you Aquarians out there, I really hope more people can see this so I can get the message out. Aquarians are always thinking, always, but not in the same way that like a Gemini might be always thinking. Geminis are constantly coming up like, what's next? I have an idea. Oh, wait, I have another idea. Maybe I'll have more ideas. Tomorrow morning, I don't like that idea, but I like the sixth idea from last night. So Gemini's always running around like that, and they'll change. But Aquarius is fixed. So Aquarius will put serious thought and will ruminate about certain things that they want to accomplish, or they want to learn, they want to know, or something that's going to help the collective group, or their collective group, whether it's their church, their family, whatever it is. And that's very important to people on this cusp. And with all the sensitivity and the distance, you can feel isolated at times because of that need for alone time. You can isolate yourself sometimes a little too much. Melancholy is an issue because the Aquarius sign doesn't naturally have a lot of ego strength, and then insecure, the melancholy and insecure part of Pisces can come to play there. And then if you're born on this cusp and you also have at least another planet in Pisces, like any personal planet, Moon, Mercury, Venus, or Mars, or even Pisces rising, you are going to be ultra sensitive. And talk about needing to recharge. Absolutely. And the Aquarius-Pisces combo in a chart is hard. It's hard to have any, it's hard for friends to have any long-term connections with this combination because of the shyness, because of the need to recharge or being drained. So again, the person just has to understand that. But as an Aquarius-Pisces, if the Aquarius-Pisces is dating, new to the dating scene, no matter what your age is, if you could explain that to someone and just say, hey, this isn't going to be personal. This is just what I need. But if it's not stated, then most likely a more emotional or a more attached person is possibly will feel that that's impersonal. Just depends. All right, let's see. We're almost at the 8 o'clock. We're almost a half hour in. Oh, yay, we have 2 people. Woohoo. Welcome. One of these days we'll get like 5 people. I mean, it's going to take a long time, but we'll get there, right? So let's get into what I think is the more psychological or personality reading part of this cusp. So this is the last cusp in the zodiac, obviously, because of the 12 signs. Aquarius is 11 and Pisces is 12. So in a day and a half, we will be in Pisces. And then I believe I'm not sure if it's March 20th or 21st this year that we begin Aries. And then the whole 12th house system starts over again with Aries. But this is the last cusp. So I equate that to wisdom. And I mentioned that when I talked about Capricorn a few weeks ago, because Capricorn's a later sign, and Capricorn is a sign of sort of acquired wisdom because it's so patient. And Capricorn really learns things because of the patience. Aquarius is similar to Capricorn in that sense that Aquarius can concentrate and wants to learn things that are lasting and that have value. But there's wisdom here because of coming up on the last sign of Pisces. So you have the group consciousness of Aquarius coming up on the house, the 12th house sign of endings, which is Pisces, which is kind of like Pisces is kind of like the closet of the horoscope where all the signs congregate and have all the different traits. Pisces is almost like a mix of all the signs, some astrologers used to think. So last cusp, and it's full of wisdom. I really do believe there's a lot of wisdom here. And there's more intellectual wisdom than there was in Capricorn because Aquarius is air. So Aquarius could be practical like Capricorn, but Aquarius is a little more, for the most part, their ideas are a little more impractical, than Capricorn. And then when you combine it coming up on Pisces, for the most part, Pisces is fanciful and into fantasy, and into poetry and sci-fi stuff, and aliens possibly, and all kinds of cool stuff. So that's that combination. But this wisdom, because it's the last cusp, and then we're coming up almost on the last sign, this could equate to the later stages of life. So it's kind of like maybe someone 12 signs or 11 signs, cycles of 7 would be 77 years old, and then 12 times 7 would be 84. So this to me is someone like in that age group, probably between late 70s and mid 80s. And then Pisces would be coming up on someone even more advanced because it's the very tail end of life. So obviously there's some people that live over 100, but the majority of people don't. The majority of people are not living to 95 or 100. That's usually probably 70s or 80s, maybe 90. But definitely wisdom. I learn a lot from people on this cusp. I've learned a lot. It's just listening, just taking it in. Even if I disagree, there's a lot. There's a lot of wisdom there. And again, the later stage of life, because of it's late in the zodiac. So even if you're talking to someone on this cusp that's 30 years old, okay, they haven't lived that much in this life, right? Or 25 years old, maybe barely out of college or graduate school, doesn't mean they're not going to have wisdom, even though they don't have nearly as much life experience as you, whether you're middle-aged or senior. So that part with the wisdom kind of leads me into the next part, which is this air-water sensitivity is your opposite. 6 months from now, we'll be talking about the Leo-Virgo cusp. So you've heard this, you heard me talk in my videos. If you've seen my videos, I always talk about the opposites. Now, the opposite doesn't mean literally opposite in terms of like Aquarius, Pisces, and Leo, Virgo are complete opposites. It means more opposite in the sense of polarity on the zodiac wheel. Aquarius and Leo are opposite signs, and Pisces and Virgo are opposite signs. So that's very, very, anytime you're doing astrology, when I was learning astrology when I was 18, I took a class with my mom, and the astrologer that was teaching us, this man, he used to always point out certain things in the chart that stood out to him, but then he would always say, well, what's the opposite of that? He'd say, oh, yeah, Aquarius, but what about the Leo function? What's Aquarius does is all intellectual and doing all this air stuff, but what's Leo doing? What's the ego doing? So he had a good sense of like, that push and pull between these two signs. And when you can't understand one sign without understanding the other. So to understand Aquarius, it's good to know what Leos are like. And to understand Pisces, you have to understand Virgo. Because if you're a Virgo or a Leo, you're opposite these signs. There's something you can learn from these signs, and there's something you can teach. So it's definitely a cool thing. So again, we'll be talking about that. Um, the Leo Virgo cusp usually starts right around like August. I think it's like August 19th. And then Leo starts right around the 23rd or 24th of August most years. So we'll be talking about that opposite. And here, the Leo Virgo cusp is fire, which is like intuition and personality. And then Virgo is earth, which is more physical, more tactical, uh, um, tangible, and sensation kind of thing. So that's the different pieces there. So here, I know I said I was going to do this early on, like in the first or second live stream, and I know you probably can't see this too well, but I did draw a wheel. I did draw a zodiac wheel of tonight's chart. This is right now. I know it's kind of messy. This is the chart right now in the zodiac, in the cosmic sky. So this is the cosmic skies chart right now. So if any baby is born in was born at like between 7:30 and let's say 9 o'clock tonight, this is basically going to be that baby's chart. Now, usually when astrologers teach, when they teach classes in beginning astrology, which I might do, they usually have there's often people that already know some astrology, so they kind of jump ahead because they already know kind of what to look for. And then some people just have a good knack and they things stand out. So you don't want to jump ahead unless you already are like a mid-level astrologer. At least you're way past beginner to start really diving deep into the chart, because you can get a little too obsessed with the details and then lose the forest from the trees. So I kind of like to, I always like to just look at the big picture when I start, nice and easy and simple, a big picture. And then we can always get super detailed later. We can always be real Virgoan or balancing the information like Libra or even like Aquarius and really, really know the essence of the chart. But here, these are all the houses. So there's 12 houses that correspond to each sign. So this is the first house here. So this is the cosmic sky chart right now, Eastern Standard Time. And Virgo is rising. So if there's a baby born right now, he or she would have Virgo rising. And then Pisces on the 7th house of relationships. But what's interesting is after we had all that Capricorn for many months, we had that heavy Saturn Capricorn planets that all the astrologers on YouTube, X, and Instagram, all the shorts and reels were about Capricorn. How heavy it is. Oh, can't wait to be done with this, right? Well, now, look at this. There's none. There's none. We have Capricorn is 25 degrees on the 5th house of entertainment tonight, but we basically have none, even though Pluto is still a cusp Capricorn Aquarius planet. But Pluto is in Aquarius. We have Venus in Aquarius. We have Mars now in Aquarius. We have Mercury in Aquarius. And we have the Sun in Aquarius. 4 personal planets and Pluto in Aquarius. This is unprecedented in the astrological sky. This is unbelievable. And for all of you Aquarians, you are going to get these. This is going to conjunct some planet, at least just by sign, if it's not degree. You don't have to worry about necessarily the degrees. Just know that it's the same sign as a conjunction, and it emphasizes certain things that could happen in your natal chart or progress chart as well. But look at all this Aquarius now. Things are getting interesting. Oh, I said interesting. Whoops, sorry. Things are getting amazing and weird and zany, right? Look at all the truth that's coming out on social media. I know a lot of people don't like to look at the real truths about what's happening around the world. there's a lot of dark, bad stuff happening. And of course, no one wants to believe that some of this stuff is happening. You know, child trafficking, the corruption with all these the politicians and the senators. You know, it's not anything new. You know, and I'm not going to get too political, but these things, you know, they are they are happening, and um, we have to acknowledge that there are things that are coming out. So my point is, with Pluto and Aquarius and all this Aquarius, the truth, oh, the truth is coming out in spades now. And if anyone's brave enough to just open your eyes and just listen, don't judge. If something's unpleasant, don't judge it. Just read it and put pieces together. Just if you can be brave. No one likes to read anything unpleasant and believe it. You don't want to absorb something unpleasant. But you know, life is life. Well, life, you know, life is life. And with all this Aquarius, you know, I mentioned weeks ago when we were in Capricorn, we were going to go from these kind of structures, government structures and financial structures that were changing into more group consciousness change, more groups, communities, more kind of like local level, you know, state level, local level kind of change, and artificial intelligence and technology. That's Aquarius. And aliens. You know, I mean, a lot of people now believe that there's aliens, that the government is covering up, and the government has, you know, alien bodies and aircraft. I mean, at this point, it's been talked about for so long. How could it not be true? It has to be. I mean, really, you know, we have to really stop denying ourselves that there's weird things that could actually be in this space and time. Um, you know, it's just because we have a mental block and we have our certain filters, our biases, that doesn't make it not so. So, so the truth with all this Aquarius and love and sex right now. Whoa, let's hope everybody's being safe, because this is crazy. This is just like free for all. It's like free love from the 60s and 70s all over again, with men and women. You know, like anything goes in the sphere of love and sex. Really, with all that, anything goes. So everyone out there, be safe. Use your head. Don't just follow impulses. Use your head. Be safe in terms of love and sex and dating and everything, because can be a little crazy, wild and crazy. Like Steve Martin was the wild and crazy guy from that Saturday Night Live, right? Um, he's a Leo, but he was a wild and crazy guy. So yeah, this is a little wild and crazy, but it's also great for intellectual achievement and the technology. Like I mentioned, the health in the health field, the medical field, technology is going to be amazing. Um, and I would think people that have strong Uranus in their chart, in their charts, and they're going to have these conjunctions, especially from the personal planets and then Pluto, are most likely going to get into these areas. If they're young, they're going to get into technology, the medical field, health, science. It's going to explode. And we're going to see a lot of Uranus type people that have strong Uranus charts getting into these fields, I think, and kind of leading this movement. And again, the truth, you know, a lot of truth coming out. So here's the sun. We're at 28 degrees of Aquarius, which we're just a degree and a half away from Pisces. So you can basically call this a Pisces sun, which it will be Sunday morning. Monday morning when we wake up. And then Saturn is still in Pisces. It's at 8 degrees. And then we have Neptune right on the 7th house of relationships at 26, late 26 of Pisces. And then up here we have Jupiter and Uranus in Taurus. And tonight's moon, which changes every 2 days, is in Gemini. So tonight is an air sign night, Aquarius, moon in Gemini. So a baby born tonight is a serious airhead. Seriously. I mean, I hope that a parent or a grandparent sees this video at some point, and can recall that on February 17, 2024, that I said their baby was going to be an airhead. I don't mean that positive or negative. With all that air, no major Earth, except for Virgo rising, which is very clever and smart and practical. But that Gemini moon, and it's also at the top of the chart near the public, this person will be a character. This person will be an absolute character. And obviously a cusp person because it's almost Pisces. But this particular chart is interesting because there's no Libra at all in the sky. As I mentioned, there's a little Gemini, and then there's tons of Aquarius. So Libra's kind of on the sidelines as the third air sign. And this whole Aquarius period of the live streams in the last month, I've been talking mainly about Aquarius, Gemini, Libra, because those are the air signs. And pretty soon we'll be moving on and talking about the water signs. But Libra, if you're Libra, you got to kind of just lay low. You're getting the trines from the other air signs, but there's not a lot really going on. Because the Capricorn planets were squaring Libra, which was activating Libra, and squaring Aries planets, and those are kind of gone now. And then over here is more notable. So Aries people, any of you that have Aries planets, if you have Aries planets, we have a serious grouping here. We have Chiron or Chiron, which is the wounded healer, at 16 degrees of Aries. And then we have the node, which is destiny or past life connections, past life residue, if you believe in that, at 18 of Aries. So anybody that's born, any Aries that are born somewhere like right around March 30th, April 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. Okay, so those kind of Aries, like Aries 2, basically the second decadent of Aries people. If you have a planet, you are getting or got a conjunction from Chiron, which can bring up old wounds. And those wounds could either be current in a current relationship, it could reactivate them. It could be wounds from childhood, or maybe even a past life, if you believe in that. It could be wounds from something else, where you were something else. And the node also is a nod. The node is a nod to past life as well. So Aries is very touchy and personal and ego driven. So it's important for Aries planets in right now, at least for the next couple of years. Aries planets, probably more than any other sign, and obviously we'll talk more about this in March when we go into Aries. But Aries planets burn hot for the most part. And Aries can be really positive, can be wonderfully positive, inspiring energy for the rest of the zodiac, and can be very innocent and childlike and fun. But Aries can burn hot. So when Aries is negative or feeling wounded, look out, because they tend to burn those around them. So it's very important for people that have Aries planets, especially the personal planets or rising, to really work on breathing and taking your time. Learn this. I mean, talk about lessons in patience. If you haven't learned them, depends on how old you are, but whether you're 20 or 60, if you haven't learned them, and of course, if you're a person that has family members or friends that have major Aries in their chart, you'll know what dynamos they usually are, but they also burn pretty hot. And that can mean temper, that can mean overreactions to things, and triggers. So this is all about triggers with Aries planets. So it's really just an opportunity to let things go, to oversimplify it. Aries is good at moving forward. Aries is a sign that is skillful at not necessarily holding on to the past, but those hurts can get reignited with the Aries planets. And it could be a little dramatic. These are dramatic degrees. It's right smack dab in the middle of Aries. It's very strong, solid Aries energy, and it can absolutely be substantial and dramatic. So that's something I really hope at some point that I can get some people in here with Aries planets, because we're going to be talking about that for a while. Yep. So all these, all this Aquarius. So this is the wheel here, and these are the houses. So when you learn basic astrology and you learn the wheel, every house correlates to a sign. But then when certain planets are placed in a house, you determine the personality traits of the traits of that planet and how it's brought about in a certain. These are like arenas of life. There's certain areas of life. Your first house is your mask to the world, your personality, your your environment, somewhat. Third house is also environment, but it's like that up and close mask and yourself, your mission to the world, for that. But yeah, this is an amazing thing. And when you construct a chart, it's at least to me, it just speaks to you. It speaks to you. Like that's how you learn it. Like you can get all technical. I don't have them here. I don't have all the angles drawn, but I'm looking at my software right now. And this is really interesting. Let's see. Hold on one second. Let's see. There's a lot of angles here, but if you notice, like almost all the planets are in this hemisphere of the chart. This is all empty here. And I think, if I recall correctly, I think Alfred Hitchcock has this type of chart. So if you look at it, it's like a bowl. It's like a. This is really a bowl because all the planets are here, and it's kind of like this is a big part that the person's missing. These parts, these areas of their life, and they'll often be dependent on other people to fill this in. And for example, the ego here, ego strength here, second house of values, and this is more selfish over here, and this is more altruistic over here. So Alfred Hitchcock would have, in his personal life, if he has the bowl, would have depended probably on a partner or a friend for a lot of his lack. I'm sure he was lacking a lot there, but he had all his planets in one area, which is a very, very kind of interesting thing. And of course, these make all sorts of aspects. And I don't have the lines here. And if you get your chart done, which I can do that for you, and I can email you a chart or print it out. If you get that done with software, you can see the software program will calculate all the angles and will show you trines, squares, oppositions. And it's really interesting because then you see the shape of the chart, and then you can get more into the math part. So some astrologers like to go really deep into the angles and all the degrees and the kind of the math part. But this is a good example just for beginner astrologers or even beginner to intermediate astrology people are taking courses to just get a sense of the wheel. And then obviously to know all the symbols of the signs. When you look at software, you know what sign it is by the symbol, and then you know the symbols of the planets too. So that's good to memorize that. So you kind of know that off the top of your head. But also another thing I wanted to mention is this chart, tonight's chart, there's no major Cancer and no major Scorpio. So we have the outer planets of Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, and then we're going to start Pisces on Monday. So we will get more watery. So Cancer and Scorpio people, there's not much going on as far as your transits, except for the fact that when we're in Pisces, your planets will get trined, just like Gemini and Libra planets just got trined by the transiting Aquarius. So that's a good thing for Cancer and Scorpio planets coming up, is the Pisces will trine you. And another thing is Leo. I talked about the Leo Virgo cusp being the opposite of this cusp. So Leo people are going to feel this planetary shifts in the next few months a lot, because all this Aquarius energy is opposing Leo. So it's like a push pull. So it's not as upfront and personal as it is for Aquarius, because the Aquarius gets the conjunction, but it is an opposition to the Leo, which is over here on the 12th house, which is kind of a secretive and hidden. Um, so there's not much going on with Leo in terms of the public right now. The Leo planets are kind of laying low, I think, right now, not as dramatic. So all this is opposed. So that's another thing for Leos to keep in mind. The Aquarius is hitting your Leo planets with the polarity. And then when we enter Pisces next week, and then we'll have the Sun, Saturn, and Neptune in Pisces, then it's a call for Virgo people, which I'll mention next week. We'll talk about that. For Virgo people, the Virgo planets will be getting the opposition polarity. We'll be getting the opposition polarity from the Pisces planets, and that will be interesting. So then it'll be more upfront and personal for Pisces, and then opposition for Virgo. And the opposite signs in the zodiac, there's 12 signs, and then there's 6 pairs of opposition. 6 times 2 is 12. So there's similar qualities to the polarities, like Virgo and Pisces. They're similar in some ways, and then they are different in some ways. They're not completely opposite. There is some similarities there, and they share the same quality of being mutable, just like Aquarius and Leo share the same quality of being fixed. So that's another thing, the cardinal fixed and mutable qualities that comes into play. And I talk about those a lot in my videos when we talk about the opposite signs. So that's something to keep in mind for Pisces and Virgo planets coming up. All right. So we're getting to the end here. So let's talk about some of the celebrities that we have here. Let's see. So this cusp is, the talent is unbelievable. When I was looking at people on this cusp, actors, actresses, musicians, mostly male actors for some reason. This list, I was trying to find more females, but Matt Dillon from The Outsiders. I mentioned in my video yesterday that he's always played edgy and rebellious roles for the most part. And he has kind of like that sideways smile kind of thing, something about pleasant about him, but also kind of like a chip on his shoulder, like he's going to rebel against you any second. But he's also sensitive. He shows that. John Travolta, love him or hate him. Some people don't like him, but John Travolta, especially some of his earlier movies, he's got that wide smile, kind of that thick jaw, that thick Aquarius look, kind of masculine and feminine in his face. Also extremely talented, kind of detached and silly, but also sensitive. He did a movie called Premonition, which was good. So obviously John was great in Grease. I mean, he's an unbelievable talent, regardless of what you think of him as a person, but as a talent. And my favorite on this list is Lou Diamond Phillips. He is brilliant and so underrated, in my opinion. I've seen a lot of B movies and TV series with him that are not as well known. So I'm a big fan. I've kind of binge watched. There's a series called Longmire that he did a few years ago, a Western, where he was a supporting actor, called Longmire, and it took place in like Wyoming's beautiful photography. But Lou Diamond Phillips, there was a scene I watched with him, and I actually cried. I mean, it's just TV, right? Grown man, he made me cry because the scene was so good, and he was so brilliant, so intellectual, but he brought an emotion to the scene, and yeah, it's just amazing. And he's had some bad movies. He did La Bamba, but he's had some kind of hits and misses. He's hard to fit in. Another thing on this cusp, it's hard to fit these people in to the straight and narrow, and they don't want to be typecast as one thing as an actor or actress, because they're so versatile, and because that Pisces part, the Pisces part is kind of an emotional chameleon, sort of. Um, so even though they're very mental, they have that Pisces part that they is so good, and they can be kind of weird and kind of maybe a little shady, a little shifty. Um, the next one is Michael Jordan, who's arguably the best basketball player of all time. I know other people think it might be LeBron James or Shaq or Charles Barkley. There's a lot of other good basketball players that are on this cusp as well. Not sure what it is about this cusp. The talent is unbelievable. And Michael Jordan used to fly through the air. He was called Air Jordan. He used to just fly. He used to fly from the free throw line and do a dunk from free throw to the basket, just in one. Like, how do you do that? Unbelievable. So it's not all just because he's an Aquarius cusp. Um, he has Mars and Leo. That doesn't hurt. The Leo Mars for sports and entertainment. But yeah, Michael, to me, yeah, probably the most talented, probably sports figure ever. Um, and he hides a lot of emotion in interviews behind that kind of cool facade, but he's quite an emotional guy. Now, this is probably the most interesting one, is Kurt Cobain, or amazing. Kurt Cobain, the late grunge rock singer from the late 80s and early 90s, who unfortunately died in his 20s from a gunshot wound. He was very troubled. But his music, Nirvana, the grunge music that came out of Seattle in the early 90s, was almost like another British invasion or a revival, like that, like what the Beatles put on, or the Rolling Stones, or Joni Mitchell, or Neil Young, Bob Dylan, put on the stamp of popular music. That's kind of what Kurt Cobain and Nirvana did in 1990, 91, 92. Put that, and the music is full of like rage, but it's also beautifully intellectual and very emotional. And Kurt was a very reclusive, troubled person. He was very isolated. He was very insecure, and he was very melancholy. But his talent was off the chart. So I mean, the people on this cusp it's just unbelievable. And Yoko Ono, I just talked about the Beatles. Yoko Ono, to be with John Lennon, and to be the other half of that, and be connected to the Beatles and everything. And how smart and creative she must have been behind the scenes. Um, and truly a unique. Yoko Ono is truly a unique physically, but the essence of her. And this is a wild card person, Lorena McKennitt. Look her up. I'm not sure if she's Irish or Scottish or English. She's like a Celtic New Age singer, kind of in the vein of Enya. And I think she was active in the 80s and 90s, maybe even 2000s. And she has some beautiful, beautiful Celtic New Age music. It's probably a little more dramatic than Enya. It's more fanciful, right? Enya's a Taurus. Enya's is very earthy and sensual. Lorena is an Aquarius Pisces. So look her up, Lorena McKennitt. Stream her. You could stream her on Spotify probably, or Pandora, or look her up on YouTube. She's got some beautiful, beautiful music. And there was a lot more. Another thing about this cusp, I noticed, leading right up into the first decade of Pisces, there's so many people in history that had, under their bio, they had activism, civil rights activism, personal activist, animal activist, right? So that goes back to the Aquarius and Pisces sensitivity. Aquarius Pisces people really, really care about the collective earth, collective people, collective animals, the creatures, right? That's what Aquarius and Pisces is about. So Aquarius is going to be, if you hurt the vulnerable, Aquarius Pisces is going to be, their antenna is going to come right up and be like, hey, I have to do something. I have to stand for those that are sensitive, sensitive, whether it's a sensitive population, sensitive children, sensitive, homeless animals, activism. There's so many people from all over the world that were born on this cusp, way, way back in history, that had some sort of activism. And that's also the Aquarius part. The Aquarius, even if Aquarius is shy, the Aquarius mentality is strong and can concentrate and can usually forge ahead with those ideas and get those ideas to groups, to local groups or churches, to get, to stand up for the vulnerable. So again, this is an amazing cusp. And when we get into Pisces, next week and into March, Pisces is, probably the most mysterious sign, or maybe tied with Scorpio, but we'll talk about that a little bit. So I'm going to end exactly, look at that, beautiful. I'm getting tired. Going to end exactly at 8:30. If any of you see this in the future, please let me know where you're viewing this from, what country. If you want, let me know your sign or throw a birthday down there. You don't have to give any personal information. I'm not going to give out any personal information. I wouldn't do that. But if you want a mini reading or something, I could do that, or I could look at someone's progressed chart. And then instead of looking at the cosmic chart like we did tonight, like the baby's born tonight, we can look at something, hopefully someone in the chat room, we could look at someone's chart in the chat room and talk about that. And maybe that person could respond and we could have a little chat, which would be wonderful. So let's end on that note. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope for all of you Aquarius, excuse me, hope all of you Aquarius Pisces people, please see this at some point in the future. Or if you see this, please share this with anyone that you know is born between the 16th and like 22nd or 23rd. And of course, there's the replay. You can watch it anytime, and all that good stuff. And of course, next week is Pisces. So happy birthday to late Aquarians. The last couple degrees, 28 and 29 degrees this weekend. Happy birthday. And then happy birthday next week to the 0 and 1 degree Pisces people. And we'll be wishing all the Pisces people happy birthdays and be talking about Pisces celebrities. Really, really cool. And I'm going to really try. You got to help me. I'm going to really try on next week's live stream. I don't want to say interesting more than once or twice. So I'm really going to try not to, try to be a little more polished. All right. Thank you so much. Have a great night, and we'll catch you next week.